These dangerous fringe groups have no place in American public life.
Anytime that you commit an attack against people to incite fear, it is terrorism.
If we want to come together, we need to move away from identity politics and multiculturalism and focus on the American national identity.
Tensions reach a boiling point with North Korea. The U.S. is preparing to fight and to win.
We're on a collision course with North Korea. President Trump inherited a mess. To all those smart people who are criticizing his rhetoric and his policy, how well did you do?
China says it will stop importing North Korea's coal, iron, fish, and other goods in the coming weeks.
This is President Trump plans to strike the first blow against China in a trade war with the U.S.
Thomas with the finishing touches.
The winner of the 99th PGA Championship, Justin Thomas.
We just saw a live shot from inside our control room deep in the heart of this building. And you know what? One of the guys in the back row is celebrating a birthday today.
I think that's true. Which one? There he is.
Brian Michael Tully, that man right there. Happy birthday, Tully.
Birthday.
You're working on your birthday.
He was working over the weekend. He's working on his birthday. He'll get maybe more than coal.
So Brian Tully's the one that's in our ear most of the morning. He's wonderful, and they keep us going through the hours.
Motivated.
They do help us.
And informed at times. Remember, you should be saying this.
Exactly.
Running out of time. It's like the 24 show. Remember, you're running out of time.
Yeah, that's right.
You're running out of time.
Wrap.
Anyway, happy birthday, Brian Tully.
Yes.
Well, happy Monday morning to all of you. We are happy to be with you. Pete and I will be with you all week,
Great to have
unfortunately
you.
for you, Steve. But we are happy to be with you.
For better or for worse.
That's right. Brian and Ainsley are on holiday for the whole week separately. We're going to have the two of you here through Friday, and then 2 more days after that.
That's right.
So you're going to work like 10 straight.
That's right.
Good thing we like
Why
each
not?
other, Pete.
Yeah, it's true. We're friends.
All right, we do have a lot of news to get to this morning, though. We want to start with the Fox News alert and tensions nationwide reaching a fever pitch following Charlottesville's deadly rally on Saturday.
Anti-protesters turning Washington State's peaceful freedom rally into chaos, clashing with cops on the streets in Seattle.
Some of them sprayed the police officers with silly string. The protesters seen armed with axe handles and some carrying 2x4s, taunting police, hoping to incite violence. Officers in riot gear forced to use pepper spray and flashbang grenades to keep the anti-protesters separated.
Larry, just stay against the wall, okay?
3 people were arrested for obstruction and assault. Luckily, no one was hurt.
Continue. Now to another Fox News alert. The feds now widening their investigation into the Charlottesville attack suspects' hate-filled past.
This is Vice President Mike Pence makes it very clear the Trump administration condemns all hate groups.
And that is where we find our Matt Finn, who is live for us in Charlottesville, Virginia, where a vigil was held last night for the woman mowed down in the violence. I was watching this play out yesterday. It was just heartbreaking. Matt, what can you tell us this morning?
Well, the heartbreak continues. It's a somber sunrise here in Charlottesville as this town and the entire country really comes to terms with the violent riots that left 3 people dead here over the weekend. And the driver who plowed his car through the crowds, killing a person, is expected to be arraigned at the court behind me this morning, charged with second-degree murder. And we have some strong video to show you of that incident. Police say that James Field Jr. intentionally drove his gray Dodge into crowds, killing 32-year-old Heather Heyer and injuring 19 others. Now, this is all related to those white supremacy riots that now Vice President Mike Pence say he and the president condemn.
We have no tolerance for hate and violence from white supremacists, neo-Nazis, or the KKK. These dangerous fringe groups have no place in American public life and in the American debate, and we condemn them in the strongest possible terms.
There was a vigil held here last night and in other cities across the U.S. in remembrance of 32-year-old Heather Heyer, and also 2 Virginia state troopers were killed when their chopper went down this weekend. They were assisting law enforcement. They're identified as Lieutenant H.J. Cullen and Trooper Pilot Burke Bates. Now, it's not clear if that driver will appear in person or in video in the court behind me. He could potentially be charged with domestic terrorism, and federal investigators are also looking into the possibility that he might have had some type of assistance when he drove his car into the crowds this weekend. Back to you in New York.
All right, Matt Finn live in Charlottesville with the very latest. We thank you very much. Ever since yesterday, the president has taken a lot of heat because he did make a statement and he was talking about the problems were coming from many sides. And people on both sides of the political aisle said that the president seemed to be spreading the blame equally between the white nationalists and the counter-protesters. And that is one of the reasons the White House came out with a statement yesterday that was very clear. It goes like this. The president said very strongly in his statement yesterday that he condemns all forms of violence, bigotry, and hatred. Of course, that includes white supremacists, KKK, neo-Nazi, and all extremist groups.
So that's right. Yesterday, he did say, to be clear, he condemned in the strongest possible terms bigotry and hatred, talked about coming together and putting America first as opposed to racial identity first, talking to all sides, which everyone needs to hear. The specificity today, of course, comes after we learned that this James Alex Fields was obsessed with Hitler and the Nazis, something everyone would and should condemn.
Yeah, and something that should be called out for what it is, because there's no room in this country and for our political dialogue for hate and for violence. And we heard the vice president backing that up yesterday when he was traveling and saying that there is no room for that. And he called them out. He called out whether it's the KKK, whether it's the Nazi group, whether it is these white supremacists, there is no room for that. And I think we're all on the same page there. The president is getting hit for not calling it for exactly what it was in that moment. As you said, we didn't have all the facts yet. But no surprise, the media has kind of run with that. That's sort of the title of every paper
Even after
this
that
morning.
statement, the New York Times says his statement is found wanting. And if there's ever editorializing on the front page, I think that's
well, his daughter, Ivanka, tweeted out yesterday, there should be no place inside society for racism, white supremacy, and neo-Nazis. Pete had a great discussion with Carol Swain. She's a professor at Vanderbilt, and she has looked at the situation, and she's been studying the racial dynamic for a number of years. And she said, essentially, a lot of this comes from identity politics.
It's coming out and denouncing white supremacy and painting everyone with the same broad brush does not solve the problem. There are black nationalists, there are white nationalists, there are Hispanic nationalists, and so we can't say it's just one group. So the president was correct when he said that there were many forces involved. If we want to come together, we need to move away from identity politics and multiculturalism and focus on the American national identity. That's the only way we're going to be able to get beyond this.
She went on to say we just have to have mature, non-politically correct, honest conversations about grievances and senses, and calling out the hate-filled rhetoric on either side, but honestly saying, hey, we disagree on some things, but we should be able to come together about this country.
There are different groups involved, and I think she was right when she said we've got to be careful when we lump people together, whether it's, assuming that everyone's a part of one political group or one affiliation. You think about this, I call him a domestic terrorist. I mean, the guy that rammed that car in and killed that woman, injuring 19 people. I mean, he was apparently a part of a neo-Nazi organization. He did not represent necessarily everyone that was on the ground there that day. I don't stand by any of it.
Let alone President Trump, who they try to tie it to, which is just...
President Trump has been up and tweeting this morning already. He said he's heading back to Washington, D.C. to work on trade in the military. He will have a press conference with the press pool at 3 o'clock this afternoon after spending about 8 hours in the White House, where they're putting a fresh coat of paint on things and some new carpet as well.
And some new air conditioning.
Indeed. Look for him to say more, not only about trade and the military, but about what happened over the weekend in Virginia.
Yeah. Also, I'm sure a lot about North Korea, because everyone's eyes and ears are still on what's going to happen with North Korea. The president's rhetoric has been quite tough, tougher than we've really seen in recent years against North Korea, against China. Lindsey Graham was on Fox News Sunday yesterday, and he was actually praising the president for this tough rhetoric. And he said, how well did we do when we didn't have this tough rhetoric? Here's what he said.
I don't think there's an military action is imminent, but we're on a collision course with North Korea. President Trump inherited a mess. All those smart people are criticizing his rhetoric and his policy. How well did you do?
Yeah, it's a great question on both the left and the right previous administrations. North Korea also recalling its ambassadors. I didn't know North Korea had at least effective ambassadors to Russia, China, and the UN. And we're also seeing China putting some new screws to North Korea, likely as a result of tough talk and behind-the-scenes action.
Well, and it sounds like the president is going to be putting the screws to China later today because the press availability at 3 o'clock is to talk about trade. He's going to be signing a memo to do as much as the United States can to essentially, while China in public says, yeah, we're helping you out. Well, now, going to get a little slap on the wrist.
Well, he tried the Mr. Nice Guy approach. He tried the carrot and said, hey, if we want to avoid this trade stuff, help us out with North Korea. Well, they didn't. Now they might, but he's still saying, hey, we're going to double down and force you to do that because your interests don't align with ours nicely. Well, they better, or think
less carrot today, more stick.
You know, it's so interesting because we hear from many in the media and in politics, many on the left, saying that his rhetoric is too tough, that this is inciting violence. But you talk to the American people and you look at poll after poll, and I think a major majority of this country feels like we have not been tough enough. We are not doing enough when it comes to dealing with North Korea, when it comes to dealing with China. So there really is a disconnect today in this country of the discourse and how people are really feeling about
Well, we had Scott Rasmussen on earlier. His poll, President Trump's poll numbers up. A lot of people believe in response to that tough talk.
All right,
honestly.
So it is now 7:11 here in New York City, and Jillian's got some help.
Jillian.
That's right. Good Monday morning to you at home as well. We do begin with a Fox News alert. A manhunt is intensifying for the gunman who killed 3 people at a racetrack in Wisconsin. Police say the victims were shot at point-blank range near a food vendor at the Great Lakes Driveway south of Milwaukee. Police don't know what happened before the shooting. Nearly 5,000 people were at the drag racing event. No one else was hurt. 2 American soldiers are dead, killed while fighting in Iraq. U.S. military officials say the service members died during combat training operations and not by enemy contact. 5 others hurt in the incident. None of the soldiers have been identified. More than a dozen illegal immigrants found locked inside of a sweltering truck near the U.S. border with Mexico. A relative of someone inside the trailer tipping off police, leading them to a truck stop in Edinburgh, Texas. Police say the 17 immigrants were likely locked inside for 8 or 9 hours. No one, though, seriously hurt. This comes less than a month after 10 illegal immigrants were found dead in a tractor trailer in San Antonio, Texas. And in just a few hours, SpaceX will blast off towards the International Space Station.
3, 2, 1. And
Lift off. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will send 6,000 pounds of supplies and cargo to the ISS. That includes a supercomputer designed to withstand outer space. The launch is scheduled for 12:31 this afternoon at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. So look at your headlines as I send it back to you guys.
Jillian, shouldn't they already have a computer up there to withstand outer space?
You would think. But this one is really going to withstand outer space.
Thank you very much. Thanks. All right, well, we showed you this shocking video on Friday. A police officer shot at point-blank range.
Take your hands out your pocket! Take your hands out your pocket! Shots fired!
Wow, that officer survived to tell his story and will join us live in a few minutes.
And the mainstream media blaming right-wing rhetoric for the hate-fueled attack in Charlottesville. Conservative filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza says it's actually the radical left fueling the divide. He will explain that point of view next. Mainstream media quick to blame right-wing rhetoric for Saturday's hate-fueled attacks in the state of Virginia.
But our next guest claims it's the racial politics on the left actually fueling this divide. Here to weigh in, author of New York Times bestseller, The Big Lie, Dinesh D'Souza. Dinesh, good to have you with us.
Good to be here.
So you say there's something else going on here. Walk us through this.
Well, the media is drawing the lesson from Charlottesville that Trump's hateful rhetoric, his racist rhetoric, is partly responsible for this. And Trump is accused of being like Hitler, making a kind of a racist attack on immigrants. Now, the key point is that for Trump, the distinction is between legal immigrants and illegals. And this is not a racial distinction at all. Remember, the vast majority of legal immigrants to America today are non-white. They come from Asia, they come from Africa, from South America. Trump has never said, not even implied, that he wants to see legal immigration be more white. He wants to see more people, for example, come from England and Australia, and fewer people come, so let's say, for example, from India. Trump has never said that. On the other side of the aisle, if you think of Hitler, Hitler wasn't even talking about immigrants. The Jews in Germany were German citizens. And so for Hitler, the distinction was inside of Germany between what he considered to be the superior Nordics and the sort of inferior Jews. And so there's simply no valid analogy here between Trump and Hitler on this racial point at all.
Dinesh, a lot of his critics will also say that when he talks about America first or Americanism, that's a dog whistle for white nationalism. What he really means is white people. What's your take on that?
Well, Trump is arguing for an American nationalism and not a white nationalism. Let's remember that this whole concept of ethnic nationalism is a left-wing idea. The Democratic Party invented white nationalism, and the Democratic Party invented black nationalism. Now, interestingly, today, the way that the progressive Democrats have constructed their sort of multicultural totem pole, they encourage every form of ethnic nationalism except white nationalism. And so they encourage black nationalism and Hispanic nationalism, Asian nationalism, but somehow the white guy is not welcome at the multicultural picnic. This, I think, actually explains why these white nationalists, who really belong in the Democratic Party, are in a sense politically homeless, because if they show up at the multicultural picnic, they're Satan.
All right. Dinesh D'Souza, author of The Big Lie, joins us today from LA. Thank you very much, Dinesh.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Dinesh. All right, up next, a police officer shot at point-blank range joins us live with his incredible story of survival.
Take your hands out your pocket! Take your hands out your pocket! Shots fired! Dispatch, Echo 7, I'm hit. I'm hit. I'm hit in my neck someplace. Dispatch, please tell my family I love them.
Individuals living in France over the last 2 years. The French government is currently tracking around 19,000 people with alleged ties to radical Islamic terror groups. Next, 133%. That's the increase in children being admitted to the emergency room for marijuana intoxication. The numbers from a study in France where marijuana is legal. They're really nailing it over there in France right now. And finally, 100%, a survey finding every top school bus contractor in the U.S. is experiencing a driver shortage. 22% of those companies classify the problem as severe. So if you're out of a job, drive a bus. Why not? Abby, down to you.
Thank you, Pete. All right, a police officer shot at point-blank range, and he survives. South Carolina officer Quincy Smith was wearing his own body camera at the time of the shooting and captured everything from the moment that he was hit until the ambulance arrived.
And the message to his family in what he thought was his last breath will give you chills. We want to warn you, some might find this video disturbing. Nonetheless, here it is.
Take your hands out your pocket! Take your hands out your pocket! Shots fired! Dispatch, Echo 7, I'm hit. I'm hit. I'm hit in my neck someplace. Dispatch, please tell my family I love them.
Tell my family I love them. Well, the officer got help and he survived, and now Officer Quincy Smith joins us live today from Charleston, South Carolina. Officer, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me.
So we saw the video taken from a camera that you had bought on your own and was attached to your eyeglasses. This took place on New Year's Day, 2016. Tell us about why you were in that neighborhood and who was that person you were looking at?
I was called to the area. Dispatch came across the radio. Somebody had called in stating that a black male with a camouflage hunting suit on with a red bandana was attempting to snatch another man's groceries. So I went to the area to go check it out. Went inside the store to confirm that was a guy I saw earlier. They told me that was him. He was standing right there. So I went to approach him and talk to him to see, you know, see if everything was all right. What was his involvement? And unfortunately, before I got a chance to have a simple conversation with him, you know, he pulled the gun out and shot me 3 times, hitting me in the neck, the arm, and in my hip. But luckily, the bullet hit my magazine pouch, did not penetrate to my hip.
And what was so interesting, as Steve pointed out, is that you were able to capture this from the glasses you were wearing with a video camera on them. I mean, oftentimes it's a camera, you know, at the chest level. And so to see it from this perspective, in that video, it's hard to watch. But how are you doing today? You were shot 3 times. You obviously survived this horrific attack. How are you doing today?
I'm doing a whole lot better. Still out of work on medical leave, still participating in therapy to get my bones and my muscle back proper for work. Hope to be going back to very soon.
Understood. Tell us a little bit about the video. We've not shown the entire video, but who came to your rescue? There was somebody nearby, wasn't there?
A man named Mr. John Tompkins. Never met him before a day in my life. It was fortunate he was there. He was doing some construction work on the convenience store behind the incident, and I guess he saw what I was going through, and he came to my aid and helped me, you know, and stayed there with me. You know, at the time I didn't think I was going to make it off the road that day because of the severe injuries that I had, especially from the neck wound. And he stayed there and pretty much comforted me and gave me a little bit of hope, you know, by his words and everything. So very appreciative of him. And also 2 of my family members actually came up there, part of the video. You could hear one of them yelling and screaming, and one of them praying for me on the side of the road, saying I will live and not die. So with those words and prayers that they have given me, and you know, I'm just grateful for them.
And I'm sure it's given you a whole new appreciation for life and your role being a police officer. It's an incredible story, and we are so thankful that you survived all that. I'm sure your family wakes up every morning grateful that you're with them. Officer Quincy Smith, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
By the way, the assailant, Malcolm Orr, 29, was found guilty of attempted murder and possession of a weapon and was sentenced to 35 years after a 2-day trial.
That was last week. Yep.
All right. Meanwhile, straight ahead on this Monday, President Trump preparing to return to New York City for the first time as president, and the protesters are already in hysterics. Rob Schmidt is live at Trump Tower over on 5th Avenue. Rob?
Yeah, hey guys, just a few blocks away. We're outside Trump Tower, the president's home here in New York City. Yesterday, the president came home briefly and had protests outside of his home, which we've seen a lot of over the last year. And today, he's expecting them again, all in response to his comments in response to what happened in Charlottesville over the weekend. We'll show you some of that protest video. We'll talk about it coming up.
All right, looking forward to that, Rob. And he's struggling for supporters in his own city. But could New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio be making a run for the White House in 2020? Man, it's a big field already.
Tall field.
Take this message to my brother. You will find all eyes on us. I wanna scream and shout and let it all out.
Well, today more protesters are expected to greet President Trump as he returns to New York City for the first time since taking office as president.
And hundreds of demonstrators giving a preview of what to expect, flooding the streets outside of Trump Tower this weekend, angry over his response to the deadly Charlottesville rally.
Our own Rob Schmidt is live outside, just a couple blocks down the street, outside of Trump Tower with the latest. Good morning, Rob.
Hey guys, yeah, we've seen a lot of protests here outside of Trump Tower over the last year, that's for sure, and we saw another one yesterday. We're going to likely see another one here today. Right now it's 7:30 in the morning here on the East Coast. A little early for protesters. There's nobody out here right now, but you can see the barricades are up behind me outside of Trump Tower here, and all this in response to the way the president responded to what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia over the weekend, and that car plowing into a number of people there who were actually going against well, it was a protest, an anti-protest or stuff like that. You heard the chants yesterday. Let's pull up some of the video. No Trump, no KK, no fascist USA. We've heard these chants before in protests here outside of Trump Tower. The president's initial response condemning violence on all sides, not singling out white supremacy angered a lot of people on the left. Instead, he went to, to call out and condemn extremism on both sides of the aisle. We've seen a lot of extremism and a lot of violence from the left, on the far left, and now we've seen it from the far right. He put it all together, and a lot of people didn't like that. The president right now heading to Washington actually to discuss and talk a lot about China, work a lot on that and issues he has with China, which actually gave him a big gift this morning in announcing that they are no longer going to be buying coal from North Korea, and that's something the president's been pushing hard for. And then he'll be heading back here into the city today, where he'll likely be met with a few hundred protesters yet again, which will snarl traffic here in Midtown, and we'll see the same thing that we saw yesterday, guys. We'll send it back to you.
And then, Rob, how many days will he be here in New York City messing up traffic, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, for all of our sakes.
For selfish reasons, I'm sure. Yeah, no, he might just be here today. I think he's been spending the majority of time in Bedminster, New Jersey, out at the golf course, because he says he doesn't like to screw up the city so much. He knows what a pain it is for Manhattan when he comes into town, as it is with every president. I remember when Obama would come into New York, and it would just be a nightmare to get around if you were driving. So it should just be for the afternoon. But I can't honestly tell you. He might spend the night here. He might call an audible. We don't know.
You don't indeed. All right.
Stay on it, Rob. Keep us posted.
Thank you, sir.
It's the dog days of summer, but boy, there is a lot going on. Jillian's with us for some other headlines we're following.
That's right. Good Monday morning. Let's get you caught up on what you need to know or maybe want to know before you leave the house, including this. Tom Cruise's mission, incomplete. The superstar tries and fails at his own stunts. Take a look at this video. You can see Cruise crashing into a building while filming Mission Impossible 6 in London. The actor then seen limping after the jump. No word on the extent of his injuries. The 55-year-old is known for doing his own action stunts for movies. One of President Trump's biggest critics could have his eyes on the White House. The New York Post reports New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio may run for president in 2020. The Post says de Blasio is confident he'll win re-election for mayor next year and will try to convince progressives that he's a better option than Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is also widely rumored to run in 2020. A task force wants to spend nearly $500,000 taxpayer dollars to keep illegal immigrants in the U.S. The group is asking the city of Tacoma, Washington, to consider setting aside $440,000 to help illegals at a detention center fight deportations. City council officials say they are receptive to the idea. So look at your headlines on this Monday as I send it back to you guys.
All right,
studio,
thank you very much.
Over here.
Right. Meanwhile, it's kind of a outside. It's a little bit of a gray day. Adam Klotz is on the streets of New York City, where he's going to give us our Foxcast.
Hey there, guys. Yeah, Steve, it's a little overcast out here, but the weather hasn't been too bad. You guys enjoying the New York City weather?
Oh, yeah.
Where you guys come from?
Minnesota.
Minnesota, but you're having a good trip here?
Yeah, it's been great.
Big Fox viewers, yeah?
Yes. Yeah, every morning.
Awesome. All right, well, thanks for coming out here, guys. It feels great out here. They're obviously enjoying it. Weather across the country, really not too bad early this morning. Now, there are a couple of spots, some trouble areas off to the west, but what we're looking at as far as temperatures go, yeah, those are pretty comfortable. They're in the mid-60s, in some cases the mid-70s, a little farther south. Here's what I want to show you nationally. All is dry, all is clear on the eastern half of the country, but take a look at what's been happening out west in just the last couple of days and really the last couple of weeks. Monsoonal moisture, so you continue to see that radar loop. And in the afternoon hours, we get heavy downpours. There's been some flooding, some flash flooding out that way, guys. Could happen again this afternoon. That's something we're certainly going to be paying very close attention to. But again, all is well out here for the East Coast, and things will continue to look good, guys.
Adam,
all is well.
thank you very much.
Yeah,
all is well
I
with the
got
world.
you.
So some widely scattered showers across the country, but it has been kind of a weird temperature-wise summer for the Northeast. I cannot remember such mild temperatures in August. It was beautiful.
We had like 5 really hot days, and that was it. Now it feels like we're getting into the fall.
I blame global climate change.
You would.
I do.
Of course, you go there. We're talking about the weather.
Yeah, that's all.
Oh, it's pretty outside.
I can't resist. All right, coming up, Iran votes to increase spending on missiles. Was this part of an awesome deal we signed? That awesome Iran deal? Well, a former member of President Obama's State Department will be here live to discuss.
And was it a riot or was it just a revolt? Depends on the politician and whether or not they need your vote. David Webb will explain what we're talking about right there with some hypocrisy coming up next.